We've seen 386 convicted, many of them through guilty pleas, anyways. And we also seen, some of them being brought into different categories. There's a case of 9 who were involved in the 2025 massacre that killed about 150 individuals. Now, seeing this, we call it, I think it's the largest terrorism prosecutions that we have had in Nigeria's history. I don't know, I could be wrong. But seeing this, as a public affairs analyst, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when it comes to victims getting justice and this move?
Yeah, there are two different things. Victim getting justice goes beyond sentencing the offenders. That's just one side to it. These are people who have been subjected to a lot of psychological trauma. They've lost loved ones. They've lost sometimes properties. Sometimes they've been maimed. You can imagine young girls that have been raped, and then you are sending the rapists. So what effort is being made by the same governments to subject the rape victim to a therapy that would help the victim to full recovery? These are things, lifelong injuries. You understand? But we keep saying, even some of them are even still in captivity. We're in 2026. Leah Sharibu was kidnapped in 2018. That's how many years ago? 8. Now, when she has parents still alive, perhaps those who had participated in her kidnap are among those being tried now. And you send them to prison. But Sharia is still in captivity. And you now say the parent has gotten justice. And no effort is being made. But we hear from the terrorists themselves or their informants saying that, okay, she's been delivered of a baby, 2 babies, meaning they know where she is. And no effort is being made to getting her out of that captivity. And then you sentence the people that participated in the kidnap to prison after trials. And then you say that is justice. That is not justice. It is not enough to just sentence the offenders. It goes beyond that to getting justice. I overheard the first guest even going to the extent of financial compensation for the victim. It's part of it. You need to do whatever it takes to take that thing off their mind, even though it's going to be very difficult to forget about it, but at least to help them heal from the calamity that has befall them. So that is until we begin to go in that direction. For instance, why will you be rehabilitating Boko Haram? You understand? Or terrorists. And then their victim is not being, enrolled for a kind of rehabilitation, because there is not only the offenders that need rehabilitation. Those who are the victims even need it more, because they have suffered psychological trauma that will affect them. Some will not recover from it. Especially when you just abandon them, you commiserate with them, maybe give them relief material, and you think it will go away. It's not going to go away.
Let's talk about the sentences itself. For most of the sentences, we've seen about 20 years imprisonment, for some a minimum of 8 years. I don't know. There's a lot of questions in the mind of many citizens. We've seen reactions to that online. I don't know if you have a different opinion about that, but I mean, looking at all the charges and the sentences that we have, it's out there.
You said it in your intro. They pleaded guilty. When you plead guilty, it automatically reduces the maximum sentence for that offense. Now, we also have in the law of penalties ranging from, I think, a minimum of 20 years to life imprisonment to outright death sentences. How many of them will get the maximum sentence? To a lot of Nigerians, these people don't deserve even fair hearing. What they truly deserve is what? Mass execution. But again, we are in a democracy. When the government begins to go into that direction, human rights issues will crop up. And that is another global thing. It will create a global concern. Because how would you prove that all the people you are executing en masse are actually guilty? So these are issues that we are dealing with. And that's why this development should even be welcomed. I see.
Welcome.
Because have we heard of such before? What we usually have is that they've crossed the border. They are foreigners. They are not Nigerians. Those are the initial excuses.
So you are impressed that government had to go to this point?
They are not seeing it to the end. But at least we are hearing them do this for the first time. Who are those that were paraded for Chibok girls? That was how many years ago? 2014. Do you understand? Have you had any people or any group of a gang being paraded for Chibok girls? Same thing for Dapchi. You understand? So these ones that are even captured now being recent offenses, not the ones that were even more terrible.
A backlog of detainees from time past. Maybe the Chibok or the Dapchi.
The issue of detainee is a systemic one. Okay. You understand? And these are areas where we need judicial reforms. I was expecting, though you did mention some of it, because some years back I, through a humanitarian effort, visited the Agodi prison. We actually wanted to give them some relief materials, so I had to go ahead to make inquiries. So my findings was that they have inmates numbering about 1,007 or thereabouts as at then. I'm talking about 2015. You know that out of that 1,000 plus, less than 300 are the ones having their actual jail terms. The over 700 left were awaiting trial.
So over 70% of those, they were awaiting
trials. And that's the same scenario in every prison or correctional facilities that we have there. So when you now take that aggregate, and this may not even be terrorists, because terrorism was already trending as at the time I'm talking about. More so, it was Agodi prison. We don't have much of terrorism case here. They would rather be in correctional facilities up north. So, look at that. And these ones are waiting trial. Will be kept there. Some may be exchanged for some high-profile criminal and executed. It happens. Some may just be left alone. Some will just die. Some may escape, if like we had in Kuje sometimes back. So when you have that situation, and why are they kept there? Because emphasis within the judiciary is usually placed on corruption cases and other political cases. Those ones will see quick trials. You understand? But when it comes...
Why is it that way?
Because even in the law, because of the peculiarities of those cases. Now, why can't you create, for instance, terrorism charges? Why do you have to go to the regular courts? Why can't the legislature pass a law that will establish a special anti-terrorism or counter-terrorism tribunal, which is where these people will be taken to? The only thing they are looking at is terrorism cases. That will speeding up their trials. And those who may be guilty, maybe they were just rounded up innocently, if proven, will be set free. Those that deserve the maximum sentences, you give to them.
Okay.
But nobody is talking about that. Despite the fact that we've had laws in this country, we were signatories to so many conventions and protocols against terrorism globally. But we are not doing the right thing.
Now let's look at the number, the large number of people involved in this, convention. Don't you think that we might be working towards another prison break? Because, if you have such, except they're splitted in different places. When they are, they committed, as claimed, the same offense, and they're kept in the same place, don't you think it might be another opportunity to regroup and replan against the Federal Republic of Nigeria?
We will There's a possibility of that happening, but I want to believe those in charge of the prosecutions are wise enough not to put them in the same place. Maybe that court where they are standing trial is the only available one for now, or to accelerate the trials, so they decide to group them together since they committed similar offense and accelerate it, which is part of what we've been asking for.
Now, this is for terrorism. There are other, just like you mentioned earlier, you gave an instance of Agodi Correctional Center. Don't you think it's high time for our government to, move in the direction of having maybe this kind of mass, prosecution and resolving the heavy load on our facility, especially the correctional facility?
Well, for other other criminal cases like murder and robbery and the rest of them, I don't think it would be ideal, because those are usually isolated events. They are not, they are committed by probably a group of fewer numbers. But we know the terrorists that we're dealing with are they are large in numbers. They don't go alone. They go en masse, especially those involved in mass kidnap, and of course those involved in mass killings. Those ones don't go individually. So if they have traced them to maybe their hideout and then round them up from that place, they will definitely give them mass trial. So that is what I think is responsible for this. But if we're now speaking of those other ones that are there, it is a judicial reform that will have to see to that. Maybe they will have to appoint some lawyers that would not take any other brief apart from briefs like that. Maybe we need to recruit more justices or magistrates so that we can have, that means we'll have increase the number of court branches that we have, or maybe having the bigger complex that represents courts. For instance, I don't know how many courtrooms that the State High Court has and the Federal High Court that is also in Ibadan. So maybe we need bigger complex with more rooms to accommodate different trials at the same time. The one that would expedite the awaiting trial cases, and it will also ease the burden on the judges, because you have a case where a particular judge may be sitting on about over 100 cases at the same time. So there is no way he would not abandon some, especially when he has to deal with political and corruption cases, which usually takes priority.
Okay, one would have expected that the humanitarian ministry of the federal government would look at it. Victims of terrorism and their families are entitled to specified support, including financial compensation, medical care, psychological trauma care, and legal assistance. Government and international bodies often provide dedicated funds to cover medical expenses, loss of earnings, and funeral costs, with a focus on victim-centered approach. Now, that's what that ministry should be doing. Why have we not recorded, if we could record this large number of, people involved in terrorism, why don't we have, large number of people that are being compensated? Look at the kind of lives that the IDPs, people at the IDP camps are living. They're even more traumatized at the camps than in their homes.
That's true. There's only one reason for that, and that's corruption. The ministry, unfortunately, was created to handle things like that. But some people had turned it to a cash cow, a draining pipe. And that's why you could have a minister appointed, and within 3 months, we are talking about hundreds of billions already missing. So that is the issue with that ministry. Imagine all those money being stolen are used for the right purpose. We won't be having this kind of the condition in the IDP camps would not be that terrible. They are even not supposed to spend too much time there, because it's supposed to be a temporary abode. They are not refugees. They are internally displaced persons, meaning they are citizens of this country. So how long will it take you to now relocate them back to their community? And if you feel that place is not safe, look for another community to integrate them into. It's better than just putting them in a camp, a confined environment, there is limitation to what they can do. Some of them that are out of school may remain so for the period that they will be there. And there are people that have been in these camps for more than 5 years. So when you look at that situation, and there are some other undertone which is not being spoken about, especially those who are displaced from their community. Some forces may not want them to come back because the real reason for their displacement is so that they can be mining resources that they have in that environment.
So how long are we going to keep them away from them?
If they now take them back, it's going to be going against the real intention behind the initial attack.
So for how long are we going to keep them away from their communities?
And that's why I suggested that if maybe because of that factor, then you can have a way of convincing them that, sorry, for your own safety, we cannot take you back to your community. But neighboring communities are willing to accommodate you. Then you move them there. They can start a new life from that environment.
Now, let's look at this issue of terrorism. Who do we hold responsible for the act of terrorism in the first instance? For whatever reasons we claim that terrorism is existing, somebody should be held responsible and accountable.
We'll start with the government, because failure of government usually leads to it. Governments, when it happens, will only focus on the kinetic approach. Okay, use of force to go after the terrorism. And when you do that, then you are not looking at what is fueling it. Those who are participating in this terror act are sometimes teenagers. In fact, mostly teenagers and adolescents in their early 20s. Now, these are people who should be undergoing training, either for academics or for vocational. You understand? If you had engaged them in those activities, it would have been so difficult for any people to use ideology, you understand, to convince them that once they get involved in this will be what they will get in the end. Because those are the reasons why you see them getting recruits. Because over the years, and that's where northern leadership cannot wash their hands clean on this, because they've created a feudal system that has been fueling this thing. You understand? They created it for political purpose. Now it is backfiring. If you want to say, okay, religion, like some people are made to believe, we have the Middle East countries that are also practicing the same religion. Can you compare the UAE or Qatar to anywhere in the north? Is it not the same Islam that they are practicing there? So
and they're developing their nation.
Why should your own Islam be about impoveration and al-Majiri and never about development? And now you have terrorism at your hand. How come we don't have it in those places? Meaning that there's a superior ideology or a different ideology other than religion fueling this thing. And when you have that in place, it feeds on illiteracy, when you don't focus, when governments don't invest in human capacity, human development, it's going to happen this way. You understand? If they've been educated, they will probably be working for the government or a private sector. Some of them would have relocated from the community.
So are you?
If they had been engaged in vocational and they were established, they will be busy with their work. Someone that is busy, even the Bible says an idle hand is a devil's workshop. So when these guys are not doing anything, they're just roaming the streets, begging or looking for
some parents give birth to these children, so why should they be on the street? Why would they be idle?
You say parents gave birth to these children.
Parents should be held accountable.
System in place. For instance, you say parents gave birth to the children. How come government is supporting mass wedding? Anyone that wants to get married, there's no way I want to marry a woman, means the person has the capacity to live with a woman and to do what? Feed the woman. Why should you rely on government to sponsor your wedding? That is also happening. It shows that the system is designed for the government to just be giving them peanuts and not empower them.
In view of what you said now, do you agree with our first guest who said that we shouldn't have been one nation? Because We are not integrated based on the values and the way we operate.
Only a fool would disagree with that. Nigeria is not one nation. Whoever is telling you we are one is deceiving you.
But we united. We went back.
We did not agree to unite.
But then we fought for independence together.
That is not correct.
How is it not correct? That was
Okay, let me give you what happened. You didn't go there. I would try within the space of the time.
Because I'm saying this is what we were told.
That is what you were made to believe. You understand?
Oh, you don't believe
as at the time people like him were growing up, history had been removed from the curriculum, where we would have learned the truth.
So was that also removed strategically?
It was!
By who?
Obasanjo did it as a military man because they just wanted to erase the whatever of the civil war so that people would think we are one nation. And the efforts required at their hand to have made that work, they still did not do. You left the emirs alone to continue to promote that agenda. You understand? And you didn't do anything about it. Why would you not make sure that, okay, yeah, for instance, on our way to independence, Azikiwe wanted a unitary system. You understand? He wanted a situation where the government would be in charge of everything. The North, Ahmadu Bello and Balewa, wanted a confederation, which you have a very weak center, meaning that they were not interested in being controlled from the center. Awolowo wanted federalism. Even based on those three, are they the same? You understand? But what did the British did eventually? They look at that division, which they created anyway, and use that to inform their decision. Now we got political independence. They were still controlling the economy. As of 1960, the Queen of England was still the head of state. Not until 1963 when we had the Republican Constitution. That is when we became a republic. And if you look at the period between 1954 and that 1966, there was regional competition. Everybody was developing at their own pace. But what happened? Some people thought they were doing a revolution. It made a coup. And the beneficiary of the coup did not share the idea. So he did what? He wanted to now hold firm, advised by the same British government, to unify the country. And we have a unitary system. Up till date, Decree 34 of 1966 had not been repealed. And that's why you have agitation. It's the main reason why there is terrorism. For instance, if Sankara had been controlling their gold by themselves, do you think their youth will become bandits?
So who's controlling their resources?
Now we have a land. The Land Use Act says the state government or the governor is the landlord. But the resources under the same land is controlled by the Federal Ministry of Mines, solid minerals. Federal government. Now tell me, which normal person will accept that as a way to go?
How can we correct some of these abnormalities?
Simple, restructuring.
Who's going to do it? Because we've been on this restructuring for a while.
For years now.
I was at a forum yesterday, and this was what I said. Take away this election. The ruling party has everything required to restructure this country. Now.
Explain what you just said.
I said the election is an obstacle to it. And the main thing that has been the reason all along, the political will to go ahead. But you cannot tell me it will be difficult for a party controlling 31 states not to tamper with the Constitution. Do you understand? You only need 24 to do it effectively. Why do we need states? It's because when it comes to constitutional matter, whatever the National Assembly passes, 24 of the 36 states must subscribe to it before it can be altered. Now you are controlling 31. Tell me, why is it difficult to do it? If not for what? Politics. So that's why I said everything required to go that direction is already on ground. So that's where we will know how serious this set of people in government are about the plight of the country.
Well,
And without restructuring, my brother, we are going nowhere.
now, something happened in 2024 when you spoke about history the other time. I asked a previous guest about the national anthem, why we went back to that one. And we have the precedents going back in 2024 to the current one we are using, which was what we had before independence. That was the one written by a British expatriate, Lillian Jean Williams. We put away the one that had a combination of 5 Nigerians, Eme Etim Akpan, John Ilechukwu, Ogunaike Aderibigbe, Sota Omoyegi, as composed by Benedict Odiase, who was the director of the Nigerian Police Band back then. And we used that between 1978 to 2024. Is it that it did not bear fruits, that we jumped back to the one written by a British expatriate who was living in Nigeria back then, that was composed before independence? Was it not bearing fruits? Was it not giving us what we needed for the restructuring that we so desired? Does the one that we have gone back to contain the components needed for this restructuring that we are talking about?
Well, that was 2024. 10 years before then, we had a political reform conference made up of hundreds of delegates from all over the country, from various sectors of this nation. At that conference, it was part of their decision that the anthem that we were speaking, if you look at the two, they were not done by democratic governments. The first one was a colonial government, autocratic, dictatorship, and the other one was done by a military government. But they look at the content of the lyrics. This one suits our situation better if you want to focus from ethnic rivalry and the other type towards citizenship and nationalism. That was why they all agree. In fact, on that day, when they passed the resolution and included it in their recommendation, they all stood up to recite this anthem that we were using now. That was what informed the basis of the reversal. So it's not that this government just woke up one day and then wanted to spite the man who was in power when the abandoned anthem was placed in place. And national anthem in most countries that were colonized were composed by the colonizer, not the people themselves. Only a few of them had changed the thing.
Let's, as we try to wind down the conversation, let me quickly ask you, this mass convention, do you think it is
It's
likely...
mass trial for now.
Mass trial. Do you think it will serve as a deterrent to those that are being coaxed, encouraged, persuaded?
I don't think so.
Why?
It will only maybe pacify the victims. But I told you that one thing is fueling terrorism in Nigeria, an ideology. Now, there is only one way or two ways to combat ideology. One, you create a superior one that would water the influence of that one down. And two, you find a way to block the fuel for that ideology, which is the status quo as at the time the thing will start. Now, this second one is what can be easy for the government to do, blocking the fuel. How would they do it? They are beginning to look into that direction now, a non-kinetic approach. But where they are getting it wrong is they are focusing more on the offenders than the victim. It should be a balanced thing. Then you are also focusing on those who are already involved. You are not focusing on those who are potentials, the wannabes, the ones that are yet to be recruited, so that those ones will also not end up being recruited. That's the problem that we are dealing with. We still have how many number of out-of-school children? 18 million or thereabouts. Why should we have that figure when education should be a birthright for every child? You understand? What are the northern governors doing about education? It is their exclusive reserve when it comes to primary and secondary education. Federal government is not supposed to have business there. And that's why all the secondary schools that federal government has is just 107 in the whole of the federation, the unity schools.
Wow.
Is it 107 schools that we have in the whole country? Meaning that majority of our secondary schools are responsibility. Even areas where we are not facing terrorism. Go and look at the condition of the schools now, especially in remote areas. Well, we are seeing some facelifts in the ones in the city. But is it the same in remote areas? Do they have teachers in those places? You understand? So when we don't take education seriously, we are not going to block the fuel. These are things that the government need to begin, because that's human development index. And when we say education, goes beyond reading and writing. We have placed too much emphasis on certificate, paper qualification in this country. And in the process, we've de-emphasized skills. We need to go back to the basis of promoting skills, because it is not everybody that will get a white-collar job. The white-collar job even enslaves you. It is skills that will empower you in the real sense.
All
So
right.
these are things that the government need to be doing aggressively. UNESCO that said 26% of your budget should be voted for education. They know what they are saying. That's the only way to develop a nation.
Okay.
Meaning that if in 2026 you go less than 20%, maybe you could only do 10, the balance of 16% must be added to the next year's budget to make it like 42%. That's the way to go about it.
Which seem not to look like it's going to exist.
And it's not difficult,
All right.
is it? It is just that the government prefer to build bridges where they will steal money and roads.
That's an assumption. But on that note,
It is not an assumption, it's a fact.
on that note, well, it's not. I can prove that. So
I can prove it for you if you want me. If you have time to go in
no,
there.
not in this conversation, because our time is fast spent. All right, Mr. Adesunbo Badejoko, thank you very much for your blunt and sincere point of view. We want to sincerely appreciate you this morning. Of course, on behalf of our producers and crew member, Mr. Adesunbo Badejoko, who is a public affairs analyst, thank you for joining us this morning on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll go on a break, and when we come back, it's going to be sport updates. Stay with us. Don't go away.